Hello, relevant notes. Welcome to my favorite part of the Rome Book Club, where I get to remind you that you already know how to do all of this. And you're not going to believe me, so let me make things more complicated to make you think that impressive results must have equally impressive complicated means. That's from the book. See, we are a book club. Imagine that you stumbled upon this new tool, this new way of moving through this world, and you've seen others master this skill, and with everything in your might, you attempt after attempt, do your best to do what they're doing. The mechanics, the effortlessness, the grokking of how they do it, and it all seems so new to you, but you persist. And finally, after weeks, maybe months, you see the results. You stand on both feet and you walk. Literally, I'm just describing my little niece learning how to walk. Oh, you thought that was... What does it mean to learn? Could it be as simple as learning to walk? I mean, if a child that can't even speak can learn to do something so profound, why do we think it's so hard to learn how to learn? How do we learn? How were we taught to learn? Maybe this whole ordeal is just to forget how we were taught and remember how we do. What if it was as simple as taking what we know and relating it to what we don't know? That's interesting. I mean, the worst thing you can do is make a simple task unnecessarily complicated. It's from the book. Here's another thing. When we learn as a child, aren't we consistently exposed through repetition, like A as an apple? But why don't we say A as in amygdala, like the part of the brain? And why don't we just get it once we hear it once? That connection, that relationship. Why do we have to hear it in multiple different contexts until we see that connection on our own? And then that relationship is formed. I mean, maybe it's not about storing information.
What we know about learning today is, first of all, that it's not about storing information.
That's from his lecture, by the way. If you're spending all of this time capturing and processing your notes, I'm sure you'd like to see that context as you connect your ideas together. This is where relevant notes come in. It's connecting what is relevant to the note or idea that you are currently on with all of the notes and ideas that you've already added. So if you have this new piece of information, and if you're doing this right, it ought to be something at the edges of what you already know. You place it behind or underneath the conversation that you think it best fits. And then you write your note in response to the note above it. We already went over that. But after you do that, you look through all of your notes using the index to help you track down all the different threads of conversation to add the alphanumeric numbers to the notes that this is relevant to. Hold on, let me check. Okay, how do we learn? Relating what we know to what we don't know. Check. Okay, and how do we remember what we learned? Repetition in different contexts to solidify the connection. Check. So maybe simple ideas can be tied together into consistent theories and build up enormous complexity, which just doesn't work with complicated ideas. From the book. This explains why the archive, the collection of highlights and saved hyperlinks, just doesn't fare well in the long term. It's collecting, and we're not connecting that to what we think, our interpretation of what the author is saying, and how it connects to each and every other idea that we've processed and crystallized. If you look at the simple structure, you'll notice that permanent notes are not the top-level parent block. It's what is relevant to that note that matters. And in a digital Zettelkasten, maximizing the technology, we're not limited to the physical limitations of a 3x5 index card. Think about that. Because if we're able to make relevant the letter A and the part of the brain called the amygdala by simply relating it to A as an apple, and apple is a fruit like an almond, and the almond shape gives the amygdala its name. Just imagine how many more connections we can see when we have room to connect what's relevant. I'll see you in the guided writing exercise.